about that time.
Yeah. At this time, I call the High Spring Commission Workshop to order at 6:30. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and the flag is here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sure. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Williams,
Here.
Vice Mayor Dean,
Yeah.
Here.
here, here.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, I entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda for the workshop on tonight.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that the agenda be approved as printed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give everyone a few reminders before we start with the discussion items. Tonight is a workshop, meaning that no final action will be taken. It means that we're here to discuss the two items on the agenda, and there won't be a vote by the commission. Also, we will follow the rules of procedure, meaning that for each agenda item, there's a 3-minute time limit for citizen comment. So I believe we have a little buzzer, and you'll know when your 3 minutes are up. And at that point, we just ask that you sit down and let the next person come up to speak. Additionally, all comments are directed to the mayor. So rather than talking to other citizens behind you or anyone else, the comments would be directed to the mayor. And each person can only talk once per item. So once you speak, you have your 3 minutes, you sit down, you don't get to come back up on that item. So those are all per our rules of procedure, and that's how we're going to proceed tonight. And Mr. Mayor, would you like me to discuss the special use permits at this time as well? Okay.
Yes.
And agenda item number 1 is a special event permit application for the Walldogs, and it's for an event hosted March 12th through the 15th. With a special event permit, this is typically done administratively and can be granted within just the city hall. We brought this for discussion because it is an item that has a lot of people have an opinion on, and we want to be able to have a presentation to let everyone know what the event will entail. However, a special event permit cannot be denied simply because of the party asking to use city property. So it has to be a content neutral decision, and any regulations that the commission discusses today is going to be about the safety of the public. So it's not going to be about whether or not they support or don't support the group who wants to use city property for an event. So I just wanted to explain that ahead of time, and hopefully that might clear up any questions that you may have.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Yago.
Button. Got it. Okay. Sorry. Let's adjust again. Thank you. Again, my name is Sharon Yago. Whoops, sorry. And I am the Secretary of the Board of Directors of the Heart of High Springs. The Heart of High Springs is requesting a special event permit. The Walldogs are not an organization that's requesting anything. The Heart of High Springs is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation housed here in High Springs for the benefit of the High Springs community. As we have had since the beginning, our plan was to hold public events during a week between March 12th and March 19th, mostly to discuss policy. mostly to discuss the efforts that we have been making so far in collecting history about High Springs and about getting public input on those activities, as well as seeking guidance from those who are perhaps better equipped to answer questions about historic items and activities than we are. So that has not changed. I will have to say, though, we've had, as you know, a month delay in the process. So while we had hoped to do a few things like invite special guests with expertise in historic items, we haven't been able to make those commitments simply because we haven't had, there's been a delay in the process for this approval. Not anybody's fault. I mean, we're just saying that things that we're adjusting as we go. First thing that we have been working on, and the things that we want to talk, one of the 4 points that we want to make today, is that we have been collecting history. We have a content committee that has been searching out the stories of the history of High Springs. And because of that was part of what we wanted to bring on board, and because of the public input and the public controversies and the public discussions, there has now been a flood, doors have opened to all of these historical artifacts. People are posting like crazy every day, new pictures, new stories. It's been overwhelming to see the amount of history that has flooded the social media in our community. It's been impressive. Great stories that I hadn't heard, perhaps none of you guys have heard, I'm not sure, but it has been overwhelming. And that's one of the things that we want to talk about. The other piece, one piece that we want to be able to have as a deliverable to the community is to leave behind a mural walking tour. It's a simple little tour. Fortunately, the Tourist Development Council for Alachua County has provided us with a free platform for that walking tour. It's an audio tour. You use your cell phone and you dial in a number and you can get the information on the individual site that you're looking at. In this case, it would be the 10 or so murals that we have identified mostly in the downtown corridor, but also on 441. But also as a deliverable, that can be expanded. It's just a template, because we could add every historic site, every historic home. We could add all kinds of things about this beautiful town to that kind of a mechanism. Not to say that we want to bring in throws of people to come on walking tours for murals, but that this is something that people can do when they're here. The Tourist Development Council calls that kind of funding and those kinds of activities destination enhancement. It's not that they're coming specifically for this, but while they're here, we're going to give them something else to do. And they're going to be able to maybe stay an extra day, which means an extra night of lodging, a couple extra meals, things like that. So it is a little bit economic development. We've been collecting history, and it's been very impressive. And as you can see, this is just a small word salad that we made up of just some of the topics that we have discovered. The challenge with the history is, how do we keep it? How do we capture the floodgates of historical documentation and stories and pictures and mementos? How do we capture that? This is an unintended consequence of one of our activities, has just been this plethora of all of these artifacts. What are we going to do with them? I don't think we have a plan, but I think that it's something that we want to talk to the community about. And this would be one of the conversations that we would be having with the community between March 12th and March 19th. How do we handle our history? We have 2 museums that can barely, stay open, that need support. How do we address those kinds of things as well? Whether we do physical archives, or perhaps we put something in a cloud. We're looking at interfaces as how we could move our artifacts that we are collecting into the cloud so that it would be accessible and free to everyone. The mural rocking trail I've talked to you about. Again, that's going to be a deliverable that we're going to leave with the community. Something that people can enjoy and that we can expand on, as I've discussed, as we can continue down this conversation of the history of High Springs. One of the biggest and most important pieces of our week is including public input. Now, of course, because of the controversy in these conversations and these delays, we've kind of put the cart before the horse, and we're doing it in a very formal setting, as opposed to an informal setting where we don't have to pay all these city staff to be here. We can actually just use a room in perhaps the old school or here at the Civic Center or at the Women's Club or one of the other facilities in town and have conversations about these kinds of issues and really get to them. Plus, we can talk about what the issues are. The last piece that I felt personally was most important, and that we've had to a certain extent, delay our proactive nature, our proactiveness about is in bringing experts to High Springs to talk about historical archives, art and public places. How about historic preservation? Another unintended consequence of these conversations and this amazing fervor of community engagement has been the importance of historic preservation that our plan did not include. So that's another thing that we're looking at. How do we seek the guidance to go forward in a reasonable way with what the community wants and what the community needs? So we looked to the closest thing we had, since we don't have any experts in town right now. Ashley has assured me that she has no historic preservation experts on staff, and neither does she have the budget to hire them. So that's where public and nonprofit can work together to bring those things to fruition. But right now, what we have is something that you just adopted 5 months ago, and it's got all of your names on it, except for Commissioner White's, because you weren't here, you weren't on the commission yet. But everyone else in this room you've signed off on this plan. The strategic plan for the CRA, which was adopted in August of 2021. Its mission statement is enhancing the small town scale by reinforcing details of buildings, upgrading gateways, which we are actually taking on through the gateway sign projects that we're doing, graphics, landscape, parking areas, streetscapes, and screening in those service areas that are not so pleasant to look at necessarily as you're walking town. Here's the priorities that the committee, the group, the CRA, as a collective, as a community, these are the priorities regarding sense of place and appearance that you came up with. Lighting, parking, streetscapes, stormwater management, facade grant, expanding those so that more property owners could participate in a more expansive way. And the controversial entertainment district was also a major priority. And a major recommendation. But then there's also the screening again of those visible sites, those dumpsters, the collaboration of block maintenance partnerships, and the continuation of a mural program. Now, I don't think the city has a mural program, but it's in there. Oops, excuse me. There was a general sense in these public workshops that downtown was looking a little worn out. On the left-hand side, you see the Dean Davis building in its original state a year or so ago. It was actually part of a kind of the alleyway behind Great Outdoors that kind of extended down the building and ended up with a drive-through, which is apparently going to turn into a restaurant. And then you see on the right, the new owner, Mr. Kelly Barber, who's also in the audience today and a born and bred High Springs person. Look what he's done. He's beautified and created a sense of place in that alleyway, which was never used for really much of anything. That's an example of how we can work together and improve the things that we've identified as a community that need to be improved. Apparently, the community decided that there were two main messages that they wanted to get across to the CRA. And that was the quality of a small town historic charm. I'm sorry, I put the word historic in there, but it doesn't say that, but charm and character. And then, of course, the stewardship of our ecological advantages that we have along the Santa Fe River. How? The recommendations were made that we develop educational programs that support our community's history, compute the ecology, cultural and art. And in a small way, we'll be doing that with a mural tour, as there'll be a small example of how you can develop an education tool and with local support from local businesses and entrepreneurs. And most importantly, address the concerns of the citizens that have been documented. One of the overarching results of the workshop was that concern for the overall appearance of our downtown. If you look on the left, that beautiful picture is from the Tourist Development Council, and that's how they promote downtown High Springs. But if you go 2 blocks in any direction, you're going to see everything that's also shown on the right. Isn't quite so quaint and small townish. So back to the beginning, why we're here, why we want to work with the city and the community on these issues. We want to have the community conversations. We want to share our stories, and we want you to be sharing your stories with the rest of the community and the world. We want those stories documented. How can we create accessible archives? That's a new thing. That is just one of the things that, wow, it's just one of those things that comes out of these kinds of situations and these kinds of intents, unintended. That was an unintended consequence, but it's turned out to be a real thing. How do we how do we access our archives? How do we improve our policies and the implementation of policies? We've had a lot of discussion with city staff. Okay, so what is the historic district? What does it mean to have a historic district? I don't know. I mean, I know High Springs has one, but what does it mean? Does it mean that you can't paint red bricks, or does it mean that you can't do this, or does it mean that you have to do a certain windows this way? I've never restored a historic building before. I have no expertise in that matter, but we can bring in people who do. And we have people in our community who've actually restored old buildings who can tell us how that gets done. And I believe that good policy starts with boots on the ground, starts with the people who are actually boots on the ground doing the work. Then you create the policy based on what the reality on the street is. But we need to, I personally would like to really review those policies that the city has on how they do things. Personally, I would like to know what the policies and procedures were that approved the Springs mural at the Springs Institute building. I would like to know, how did that happen? And it's went through all the right channels. It went through all the right approvals, and yet people are still upset about it. So maybe we should take a look at it. Maybe we should have a conversation about that. And another unintended consequence, which we're adding to the list, is the evaluation of historic preservation needs. One of the major things that we heard, and believe me, we heard everyone and what they said, and we have tried to incorporate as much of those concerns into what our plan is going forward. But historic preservation, who's doing that work in this community? It's up to the individual landowner, property owner at this point. So I thank you for listening. That is all I have to say about our event permit. That is what we intend. It's what we've always intended. And like I said, we'll be making some adjustments simply because of the delay of a month. But we appreciate your time.
Anyone from the board like to speak at this time? Or we're going to wait to hear the public? Give it to the people. All right, sir. Let's go.
And my name is John Sturpey. Again, I say, in respect to the teacher, Mr. Tom Diedemann, it will get much higher honors and respect to have a forever lasting bronze plaque made with a nice statement dedicating Mr. Tom Dieterman. Do not allow the Walldogs to paint anything on the walls of the old school or any walls in the whole city of High Springs.
Sir,
John,
that's the next item. So the
Yeah, but you cut me
appropriate,
off last time, so I was hoping to get this out and then I can leave.
the appropriate time to talk about Mr. Dieterman is on item 2.
Oh, okay, I'm done with that. The city of Ocala rejected the Walldogs and the city of Alachua saved itself from the tricky mob, little mob. They pushed their way here and in the middle of the night. High Springs is now a scope in their sight. Before the paint starts to peel and turns to chalk, carefully sandblast away the paint on that fluorescent face wall city block. Restore it immediately down to the old red brick. There are 2 windows, a door that needs to be fixed quick. Restore and preserve shall it be the flavor of our town. With that, we can once again all settle down. Many would think that Commissioner Ambrose, forgive me saying your name, having a conflict of interest will have the proper ethics to be genuine and to recuse himself from all Heart of High Springs Inc. and Walldog votes. After all, he is a founding member of the Heart of High Springs Inc. Is there something in it for him? Does he have a profitable stake with the approval of the Walldogs defacing our walls?
Mr. John, please stick to the item about the permit.
Pardon me, sir. Pardon me.
Stick to the item. The item is we're going to discuss the special permit.
Okay, I don't know how. This is the last time I'm going to come to a city hall meeting here. I just want to say my thing and leave, sir.
But sir,
Honorable.
we have an agenda.
Okay,
We
I don't
have
know
an
what that
agenda.
is. I don't know what agenda means. I'll say I just want to say a little poem. Okay, I'll do just the poem. I have 3, but I'll do 1. No paint, not here, not over there, not now, not ever. Save High Springs, save rural Florida, save our historical red brick walls, shut it down, the wall tick dogs. God bless you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me share. Here's my, may I pass this to somebody? And I'm out of here.
So let's have respect for everyone. That's not nice laughing at people. That's not nice. Let's not do that type of stuff, please. Laughing at people. I heard someone laughing back there. Yes, that's not nice. Not nice. Next person, please.
Hi, my name is Joanne Tremblay, and I'd like to speak regarding the special use permit for the event planned in March. I'm a retired librarian and I'm fond of stories, and I've taken great pleasure since I've retired in collecting the stories. And we all know how images are great storytellers, which is why I am fond of a well-planned mural. Murals tell a story of our town, which is something we can all share. So in March, we're going to come together and talk about the different topics that we have aggregated about this town. We're going to be talking about the river habitat, the Timucuan people, the pioneers, past and current explorers, the railroad hub that led to a growth boom in this town. We're going to be talking about peanuts and watermelons and tobacco crops, local businesses like Barry's, Jim Douglas Chevrolet, Westmoreland Autos, Skeets, and more. On a contemporary side, we'll also talk about how we can pay tribute to our first responders, our service members, our teachers, and other local heroes. This event in March is all about presenting the various stories that we have collected and are specific to our town. This event is for us, for this town. It's not for outsiders to share the stories. It's for us to share the stories that we've assembled and to vote on those stories that people prefer, that people are we'll have an assemblage, a montage of the different topics. And then people will be able to talk about them and vote on them. And the ones that are the most popular, we can memorialize with a mural. Already this project has generated a lot of interest, which is really the goal of our organization. So we've got success right there. It's a win, win, win. And I'm really proud to be part of this project. I'm learning more and more about this town, and there's so much more that we will learn as we go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to see a hand in the back. Please come forward.
Thanks. My name is Jane Blaise, and just like Mr. Sturpey, I'm concerned about COVID. I've missed 2 surgeries, and I'm trying to stay COVID free so I can hit this next surgery date. Briefly, my thoughts are that High Springs really needs to evaluate their infrastructure. We are sorely lacking for this big drive to increase tourism, which is what the Heart of High Springs seems to be about. I've been here nearly 30 years, and I have never seen us lacking for tourists. We are Florida. We're going to grow. We cannot stop growth, but we could perhaps grow with regulation and diligence. I don't support people coming from far away to do the painting. If we were going to have murals, I would want them done by our local artists, which is what this area is actually famous for. Couple more things. I don't think this meeting I wasn't able to do enough due diligence, so I won't say much more. I really think that we should schedule a workshop when we've all had a chance to do due diligence and more people have been notified, because Lord knows our population is not on Facebook. The people that we need to reach are the people that care, but they're not on Facebook. And so I don't think enough people are actually informed. It seems like there's a lot going on, but I meet somebody, Mr. Withy, city manager for 20 years, had no idea about this. Can we please schedule a proper workshop with actual facts and information? I feel like somebody's trying to sell me a $5,000 vacuum, and I don't want to hear from the vacuum salesman. I want to do my due diligence, and I haven't had a chance. So thank you for letting me speaking. I don't mean any disrespect, but I want to get out of here.
Okay.
We're getting set up on this speaker. I just wanted to give a quick reminder. The agenda item we're on right now is item number 1, which is just whether or not to grant a special use permit to host an event March 12th through March 15th. So that event is not the same as painting murals. It's whether or not to hold an event. And our standard, the commission standard, I should say, for whether content neutral standard. So I just wanted to remind everyone again that this item is simply whether or not to grant a special use permit. And also just a reminder about the 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alice Brown. I'm here to say what I think about item 4 from the January 24th agenda. I'm Alice Brown. Okay, and I'm here to say what I think about the item 4 on the January 27th agenda. Is this better? Good evening, everyone. I'm Alice Brown. I'm here to say what I think about item 4 on the January 27th agenda. And if passed, I do believe that item 3 and 4 together will begin a process that won't stop until after 2023, when the city is actually scheduled to host a Walldog Festival. And you can see that here on the walldogs.com website, circled in red, upcoming schedule events with High Springs listed. Everybody see my graphic? That's their website. The Heart of High Springs Incorporated emailed me today to say there is no request to hold a festival of any kind. And that's true for items 3 and 4, except of course for the special event permit they've requested. So I point out again that there is a festival in their plan, a festival to invite the Walldogs to paint 10 to 12 billboard size commercial style signs in High Springs, right there again on their website, which is right there. It says, Walldogs dive into High Springs, a mural in history festival. Okay, it says up there in the artwork, which is similar to the kind of artwork that the Walldogs do, because it's called a font style, is a really beautiful font that says the Walldogs dive into mural and history festival, High Springs, Florida, and under it in the circle, it reads 2023. And that is on a Facebook page of the same name that you're reading right there if you want to look it up. I would like to argue that maybe this is just a matter of semantics. This whole thing is about whether it's a festival or an event, because they did apply for a special event permit. Because there's a Facebook page devoted to this, I have to ask, is it a festival in 2023 or just a little 2022 special event permit to launch the festival in 2023? Because that's what this week-long festival in March from the 12th to the 19th is about. It's about. Okay, thank you. Really quickly, do you mind if I just show them an example of Walldogs' work?
I'm trying to be fair to everyone, so we just got a time limit for 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
my name is Wallace Simmons, and I think that the conversation that we're having about the special use permit is being glassed over, so to speak, by some of the individuals that are up here. And I think the more important aspect of this is not about Walldogs and about the murals that are going to be painted, but the order that we do things in. It's evident that the CRA, the Heart of High Springs, the Alachua County Tourism Commission, all should come together and figure out a way to preserve our history, figure out a way to better enhance the programs that the city of High Springs already has in place before we go and grant special permits to have festivals or workshops for mural painting. I think where possibly some of the problem has come here or misunderstanding is that as good as the Heart of High Springs seems their intentions to be, they've stepped kind of out of line and out of place with the way that things should be done, the timeline of events, so to speak. It's my opinion that instead of offering or granting a special events permit, that maybe we come together for a week long of workshops or a week long of more discussion about this than it would be to bring a whole herd of people to our area and kind of not have so much of a plan as to how this is going to go. I have no problem with art in public places. I myself am a fan of the scuba girl that is on the wall. I think the concept of murals is a fantastic tourism aspect, but I think that maybe these committees, again, like the CRA, the Heart of High Springs, the Tourism Board, should all get together and work as a group before we start throwing money and time and plans at something like this. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessica Caldas. I want to mostly just make a statement in support of the special use permit for an event that is being proposed of week-long discussions and workshops about history, preservation, and possible events in the future, because that's what is being proposed. I'm a volunteer for the Heart of High Springs. I have been helping Joanne and some of the other content committee members collect history, which as a new member of the community for the past 3 years and an artist is something that I have been feeling incredibly privileged to be a part of, because there's a ton of history here. And frankly, as somebody who's new to the community, I would not have heard any of it without this organization and the work we've been doing. I would have not known how to access it and where to find it and how to become a part of it. And so once again, I'm very excited about the idea of a week-long event of workshops, invitations to community to be a part of conversations, to basically do all of the things that so many people are asking for. And that's it. And that's what I'm in support of. So I hope that you guys are seriously considering this event permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sylvia Martini Newcomb. I've been a member of the CRT before and lived in this town since 1959 when I was adopted. And I know many faces up here. The thing is that what I don't know is all the members of the Heart of High Springs, who they are. First time I ever heard of it was when all of this came to my attention. I think maybe we should publish that so that people know where to go. I can tell you that no member of the Heart of High Springs has ever contacted me. My parents owned Barry's drugstore. My grandfather started the drugstore in 1919. It just seems to me that maybe y'all got the cart before the horse and we need to have more meetings. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. My name's Kelly Barber. I'm not actually a resident of High Springs. However, my wife Chrissy and I have deep roots here. I drive here to work every day, have for 17 years. We own commercial property, pay a lot of taxes, and we feel like we're stakeholders in the community. I think this will address some of the things that I just heard Ms. Brown say, and so some assumptions that have been made. I know there's a lot of dissension and disagreement here, pretty obvious. I don't think that's a bad thing long term. Look at how many people are here talking about our city today. I think it's pretty cool. I hope the people that came to get involved tonight will stay involved, and that maybe this meeting in March will be one way to do that. We're going to leave here tonight. I promise you, we're not all going to agree still, and that's okay. I just hope that, that any disagreement that we have, whatever we can agree on, be based on facts and truth, and not insinuations and misinformation. And because I saw it on Facebook, it must be true. So, and we're all guilty of that, right? We see something on Facebook and we just assume it's the gospel. So things that I've heard, and this is all going to lead to the event that we want to have in March. So what I'm here to talk about, based on things I've seen on social media, people coming up to me in town and asking me questions about this, coming to my office and asking me questions. The Heart of High, by the way, I'm a board member of the Heart of High Springs. Throw that out there. I am one of the board members. One of the assumptions is, one of the misrepresentations is that we've already made all the decisions, and that's just not a fact. That we just want to ram this through the city. That's not a fact at all. I will say that I think we could have done a better job at communicating. I'll be the first to admit that. And we're all human. We make mistakes. We're learning. We want to communicate better. But I can tell you that our hearts and our intentions were and are that in preparation of this event in March, what we did as a board was we broke into teams. We added some outside resources as well. One of us worked on walls. One team worked on walls. One team worked on content. We've identified about 40 or 50 different walls in town that we think potentially would work. We've also, and we had to look at construction, the integrity of the wall, accessibility, future maintenance, traffic hazards. Also on content, there's about 40 or 50 ideas that we've come up with in preparation. Those are relevant, historic, High Springs event, things that we've looked at. This was done in advance of the March event so that when we have the event and we bring the community together, that we can vote on these things, and also that maybe as Dr. Barry's daughter is here, there's, I guarantee you there's going to be things that we didn't think about, and that for other people to bring ideas and add them to our items that we have a chance for the community to vote on and make a choice on what we're doing. So again, because about 10 more seconds, we didn't, gotta go. Sorry.
My name's Rick Testa. I came to a meeting about 3 weeks ago, the commission meeting before the last. And I made a comment about a concept called social engineering. I don't know if any of you remember that or not, but some people started talking about it. And I hate to do this, and I don't know if I can do it in 3 minutes, but it's sort of a 9th grade civics concept. What I believe everybody's missing, I believe there's a number of commissioners, people in the audience, and probably staff that just don't remember the concept called form of government. In High Springs, for the audience, the people that don't know this, we, people that have lived here for many, many, many years, have fought this over and over. Some people want a strong mayor form of government here. We don't have one. We have a city manager and a weak mayor form of government. My representatives are elected. I voted for 5 commissioners to run the city of High Springs to the best advantage of all 7,000 people that live here now, not 1 or 2 people. Only a few people started this whole thing, Mr. Mayor. 3, 4, 5 people started it. It wasn't you. It wasn't the commissioners that started this. It was 3 people. That form of government is called a plutocracy. It's a different form of government that we practice here. This is a representative form of government, and you 5 are it. Not one of you, well, except one of you, didn't start this thing. None of you were involved in it except one of the commissioners. And this is the point that I tried to make 3 or 4 weeks ago. We're all confused because we forgot our 9th grade civics class. We are a representative form of government. You people make the decisions, not one of you, all of you, for the best interest of 7,000 people, not 5 or 6 in the High Springs, Heart of High Springs, CR, whatever the groups are. These groups pop up. They want to be in charge. They're called plutocracies. That's my message for tonight. I hope it helps a little bit, and thank you for your time.
Before the next speaker, I just want to remind everyone that this is supposed to be about the special event permit. Thank you.
1 second. You had a young lady has her hand up first.
Hi, my name is Debbie Fellows, and the gentleman there just asked a question. What did that comment have to do with this? That comment had everything to do with this. I heard about the murals a few months ago on a Facebook post. Whoop, whoop. How many people have got Facebook? How many people don't have Facebook? When I asked a question, I was laughed at, just like other people laughed at other people here tonight. When I started digging in deeper, not only as a concerned citizen of High Springs, now living in Fort White, but as an artist, as an ex-government official, as an ex-grant writer, an artist, college educated, marine biologist, and an attorney. I started asking these questions and I was laughed at. I go back and I can post these, everything that was said to me. Is Doug Hancock here tonight? Doug. Doug is the person that I was referred over to. And I beg you to go onto the Facebook page and read what your representatives have been saying about the town people here.
Ma'am, can you come back to the subject?
The subject is
the permit.
The permit is
Special permit. Yes, ma'am.
after these walls are up, High Springs will turn into a tourist culture. Essentially, people will get off Interstate 75 choosing to come to High Spring as opposed to other areas because they have beautiful wall art on display. Another post was that we were going to bring tourism in here to bring a better educated person into town, to bring a better class of people into town, to bring money into town. This is all done by private donations, and that we shouldn't have to worry about it. But I need to ask you guys, who is going to pay for the police when all of these people are coming through town? Now, I'm not against the murals. What I'm against is the line of lies that we have been told. This is going to cost, and it needs to be addressed by every single one of you. It's going to be cost through the city, through the traffic. We can't accommodate the traffic that we've got now. We are backed up to 441 on 2 sections of this town 3 times a day. We are forced to go through this town on 441 or 27, and we have to address this. Our water situation, we're going to bring in double our population. Who's going to handle the water? The waste. Who's going to handle the waste? Who is going to handle all of this? Private donations.
Ma'am, your time is up, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the 15 minutes that somebody else got last week.
Let's not go there, please. Audience, please. Let's respect one another, okay? Please.
Hello, Susan Alexander, 40-year resident. I'm here to talk about the permit. So I have here, it was online, the permit application. There's a few things that I would like to ask you. It seems like you're saying you want to hold an event to talk about history and to talk about a possible mural. But there's a request for scaffolding and a lift here required at the mural site for this event. So what does that mean? Can I have an answer, or like, are you want a scaffolding for an event to talk about a mural?
Well, that's part of when we have special events, we allow people to have stages. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Yeah. So,
And it also says here priming of the wall at the school.
that's infrastructure needed.
Like, I don't mind that.
Sorry.
Try that.
It says priming of mural location.
Okay, so that would be the next item on the Mr. Dieterman mural, where the commission makes a decision whether to allow that on the old school or not.
But that's not for this event.
That would be part of the event if it is approved on the next item. If it's not approved, then it won't be a part of the event.
Okay, so if the event is approved,
It does
then-
not mean that the mural on the old school is approved. It's completely separate.
okay. I'm not against murals. I'm just against Walldogs coming in here and painting them. I want local artists to get the chance. So that's all I want to say.
Hi, I'm Larry Banky, and I wanted to address that last point. I painted the first mural on the end of the Dean Davis building back in the late 80s. It's been since repainted, and I'm a local artist. There's lots of fine local artists. You can go to Lanza Gallery and see several of their works, but I spent 3 weeks on a ladder in a hot sun. I will never paint another mural. I'm thrilled to have other people come in who know how to do it. So it's one thing.
Anyone else want to discuss? And no discussion on item number 1. Yes, sir. Come to the mic, please.
My name is Bob Watson, known as Reverend Buff for a lot of people in this town. And I didn't come to the first meeting a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lot of yelling and screaming from what I heard. And tonight's been pretty good. I think what we need to do is listen to everybody's ideas, what they may be. Everybody jumping the gun that they're painting murals, they're doing this and doing that. I haven't heard anything being done by even the Hearts of High Springs, nobody like that, even the city commissioners. They're taking input, yes, and they're listening to people's comments and what they would like. And that's all it is, I think, right now. Nothing is saying, well, we're painting a mural and we're going to put it on here and we're doing that, and that's it. So that's the first thing. In High Springs, I don't know if you know, but there's a lot of history. I was the original founder and past president of the High Springs Museum. I started that. I was asked by the Chamber of Commerce to start the museum for a Pioneer Day event, and then it just kept on going at that point. And there is a lot of history. I moved here in 2006, so I guess to a lot of you new. I'm a rookie. But I just want to say there is a history, and I'm just going to throw out because I only got a couple of things. And we want the answers. You have to see me later. But how many airports were in High Springs? And it's more than one. How many theaters were there in High Springs? And it's more than one. And then the locations of each. What was the name of the original pre-theater name? Anybody know? That one, I'll tell you, dreamland. And the founders of High Springs didn't like it. Why? Because it was too risque back in those days. I wasn't here, so, and they decided to keep the name the priest. Does everybody know where the High Spring Spring is and what the water you use for? It was the railroad. In 1880, Henry Plant came here after he got turned down in Fort White, and he started building the railroad. The population was over 4,300 at that time. We're around 6,000 now. A lot of people worked for the railroad. Everybody know where Crockett Springs is? Do they know where David Crockett hung his horse with the chain and the nail, which is still there to this day? And Crockett Pond. Those are just a few things of our history that are in this town that people need to know. So listen to people what they have to say. Don't jump the gun and then make a decision when it's all done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? I see someone standing in the room. Please come to the mic.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Young, and I was actually a board member of the High Springs, Heart of High Springs, original board member. I learned a little bit about the program and the plan, and I'm all about doing events. Of course, everybody knows I've been in the city to do events, and that's what I graduated with at the University of Florida. And we've had fun times here doing events, and we do have a beautiful city. And I did my internship here in the city of High Springs, and I worked alongside Ross on a couple of boards, and I worked with many of you here in the community. Two things I'm still learning. I didn't make the first original meeting, but I'm hearing some conflicting information about the actual permit. So I'm just trying to make sure the permit that we're looking at today is for the March 23rd event, correct? I think that's what, because I know that
12th through 15th.
So the permit, sorry. Okay, oh, sorry. So in general, what I know when I was on the board, we were looking at trying to implement this event with the Walldogs to come and paint murals and everything else. But in that capacity of doing the permit, is there an option to pursue at a later time? I don't remember that outcome, if that's something that's applicable, because we have that date, but we do have a lot of questions. We still have a lot of things, a lot of information that hasn't maybe made it to the public. I mean, Jessica, you were saying you just learned about it. We have a lot of people still questioning. So I'm asking if that's something as an option, because of course, I love to do events, and I love our city making it happen, bringing it to the attention of the world. Now, I also, as part of the board, I also saw a lot of contention, and this has been 2 years now when I first got on the board. So my concern is that that still is in existence now. And I'm not sure if that's something because we've lacked in the communication. I'm not sure if that's part of what's going on in general. But I do have concerns that if we're going to have a permit to approve, and that's what we're looking to try to do for this group, is it the right thing when we have so much concerns about what's going on in our community and the dissension and the communication and the lack of communication and everything else. So in general, that's my initial point of whether or not we should continue with the permit, because it is kind of confusing. Can we also have this event in a future time period? 10 seconds after that, or that's it? Oh, done. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Mr. Hardy.
Billy Dowdy. I think the young lady that just spoke probably has, I'm sorry, darling. Thank you. Thank you. I think the lady who just spoke has probably hit more on the head of where I'm thinking. I would hate for us to award the event permit prematurely. With all the questions, with all the documentation that has come forward about us being, first of all, a historically centered city. We are a registered historical city. I'll get out in a minute. And so they have rules and regulations about what you can do. In fact, one gentleman told me that when he bought his house, there was a plaque in his house that honored the historical I'll get out in a minute. I'm so tired tonight. But anyway, when it was made a historical city in the national paper, that would mean that there are some things you cannot do to the walls. And so I would hate for us to give the permit tonight, and then these dear people who are trying so hard to do something, be expecting it to happen, and still all this unknown going on. So it would just seem wisdom to me if we did just have a series of meetings, let people come, ask questions, speak their hearts, and then find out. And then once we know really what's all at stake, and if we are a historical city and it is registered, the paperwork has been found, then we can't paint some walls by law. And I think that should be investigated. And then if everything works through that and the city decides they want to come out of that historical position, they might vote on that. I don't know what the majority would play. But it seems to me that it is premature to grant the permit when there's still so much coming forth and unknown. And most of all, what I'm most concerned about, that we have been a historical city, and that carries with it requirements and responsibilities of the people of this community to honor those procedures that are outlined by the United States of America Historical Society. And that's rules for every state. It's the same because it's a national organization. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me speak to that.
Yes, sir. I got it right tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak. Lance Werner. That young lady there pretty much summed up a lot of what I'm feeling. I do have some confusion about what this permit entails. The presenters earlier seemed to indicate that they're going to have this multi-day event in which they're going to take input in from the citizens of High Springs and so forth. But ultimately, in that permit, is there actually going to be a mural painted for pop? All right. So for you commissioners, when you're going to vote whether to approve this permit, is it based on just having an event, kind of like this workshop here, where people have more than 3 minutes to talk and discuss what the future of High Springs is? All right. Well, I think ultimately having a workshop is a great thing. Multi-day would be fabulous. But I just, like somebody said before about putting the cart in front of the horse. If you're already planning on having scaffolding and prepping a wall and painting a mural at this event where you're supposed to be discussing whether to paint murals, it sounds like you're already planning to paint a mural. And I don't think there's a lot of people that want to see that happen immediately. I believe that people should have the time to discuss. Beg your pardon, sir? Oh, anyway, I just think the idea of having a workshop is a grand idea. And I think there's a lot more that needs to be discussed. But I just have have a problem with giving a permit to people who are already planning on doing something that they're supposed to be discussing at that time. It seems to be that they should have a workshop. Multi-day is fine, but to discuss what and get input from everybody about possibly painting a mural. A lot of things were discussed about the infrastructure and the traffic. And I can tell you, being here 30 years, used to be a beautiful drive going through High Springs and going towards Gainesville. But we're talking about having subdivision after subdivision where there used to be farmland. This town's already got more traffic than it can handle. And I just think having an event that will lead to ultimately more tourism should be something that the other 7,000 residents should have some input in. And I don't think a 3-minute discussion is something that's going to clarify it for everybody. If you want to give a permit to discuss it, then great, but I don't think you should be allowed to paint the mural yet. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Diane Karras. I'm secretary of the High Springs Museum and has been since 2014. Just a piece of information. Does anybody realize that those quilt blocks that's on the building is not painted on the walls? They are painted on sheets of plywood, and the plywood is attached to the walls. So if they go to do a mural, why couldn't the same concept be you paint it on plywood and attach it? It's not on the walls itself. I didn't know if anybody was aware of that. So I thought I would just give you some information. Thank you.
Anyone else? Speak on the permit. Thank you.
And again, just for clarification, this is regarding the permit request, correct? My name's Christy Swilly, and I have questions regarding why we're considering a permit for this particular event. We do have a designated historic district in the city of High Springs that was gone into great length and during an architectural survey that was done in 1990. And based on the city's guidelines of appropriateness, none of this would fall in those guidelines. So are we looking to change those guidelines for the historic district, which includes all of downtown? So those are my questions that I have. If we're looking at having to change guidelines to fall into the category that this group is wanting to participate in, to me, it feels like there's a lot more we need to discuss besides just a permit. Because if they're doing any alterations then to a historic building or area, then that seems to go against those guidelines that are already put into place by the city of High Springs. So that would be a question that I would have.
So what we will do is, if murals are brought forward in the historic district, they would have to get a certificate of appropriateness. And then depending on the mural, we would look at it on a case by case basis to see if it fits within our guidelines or not, and make a recommendation to the Historic Preservation Board whether to approve it or not, and then they get to vote on it.
Thank you.
Historic Preservation Board, which also serves as the plan board.
Anyone else? I see a young lady rising in the back.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. So my name is Olivia Medina. I joined the Heart of High Springs back in 2020 when I'm new to the community and I wanted to get involved with this city. And I found it through Nancy Lavin, the president. But we were here for the special permit event. As you know, we're a new organization and we're trying to get our name out there. So the event is to try to get the city to get to know us. You know, maybe I'm part of the development and contribution to the influx of people, but I want to start my history here. And just, whether it's a mural or not, we just want to do good for the city. We know that development is coming to the city. I watched the commission meetings on Thursday, so I see all you talking about developments coming on 441. And the objective of the Heart of High Springs is to try to retain the history of this town. I have an associate's in history, so that's what attracted me to this organization, is to try to help retain some of that history, whether it's murals or not. We want the special event just so that special event permit to get approved so that the city gets to meet us. And we're still working on the website. We got our name out there, working on the Facebook page. We understand that not everybody is on Facebook. We're hoping this special event can bring the community and let us know that we're out here. And that's all I have. Thank you.
See a hand back there. Please come to the mic.
Hello, my name is Becky Tift, and I just have a couple of questions about the Heart of High Springs organization. When was it established? What was the purpose of its establishment? And is there anybody that is involved with that is in the Historic Preservation Society?
So this is about the special use permit. I
I
can't answer
realize
those.
that.
I don't have those answers, and we have a historic preservation
I
board.
realize that, but what I'm asking is with I guess what I'm saying is the Heart of High Springs, it seems like we're trying to get everything out there and that sort of thing, but how old are they? When was it started? 2019. So it's a very new thing. And all that they are doing, it seems like they're kind of taking, from my viewpoint and listening to everything that I've heard tonight, it seems that they're kind of pushing their agenda pretty much forward without giving, I hear we're trying to get our name out there. We're trying to let people know who we are, but they've already made the decisions of what's going to happen. And I really question the several days of a special event. And it seems that the main concept of the special event is the murals, because I know that we have our museum, and I feel like there's so much more that, if we're looking at the history of High Springs, that perhaps more should be done for that and the conservation of the buildings that are already here, because we do have a historic district. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no.
Mr. Mayor, we'll remind folks that are watching on Zoom, if they'd like to speak, to utilize the raise your hand function, and we can bring them in. We'll give them a minute to do that. So if you're on Zoom, you'd like to speak virtually, please raise your hand and we'll bring you in. I see no hands at this time.
All right, thank you. All righty. Commissioners, and comments or questions?
Mayor, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's important that we establish that the Heart of High Springs is an individual organization, and they're not in any way affiliated with Walldogs. That was just an idea that they had. And my understanding is that there's no promises that have been made. The city has not made any agreements with anybody. And I think people are confused because the Heart of High Springs website says that this event is coming in 2023. And the Walldogs website says they're coming here in 2023. So I think if people could get some assurances that there's been no contract, there's been no agreement, that might be a good jumping off point.
Yes, please.
And Mr. Mayor, when Ms. Diego was done, there are 2 hands that came up on Zoom.
Thank
So
you.
it takes people a minute to find it sometimes.
I know there's a lot of confusion and there has been so much talk about what our intentions are. There is no way we can get to 2023 until we get through 2022. 22 is about talking. 22 is about what's realistic. 22 is about what are the rules? What does the city require? What does the community want? What do the building owners want? It's 22 was always only about talking and seeing if there was a future. I mean, we have to get through the discussion, the initial conversation, the first date, so to speak, if we're going to be able to even think about any kind of, whether it's murals or statues or historic preservation or whatever that might be. 23 is, that's the long range plan. Sure. It was started before I came on the board. I didn't come on the board till 2020. Half the people who were on the board when that decision was made are not on the board anymore. So we have a new dialogue going on within the board itself. And the whole purpose of 22 is to identify what the issues are, talk to the community about what they want. The CRA plan is pretty specific about what the concerns of the citizens are about our downtown district. And that it's tired, that there are needs, that there are issues with buildings. But really, I assure you that 2023 is simply, let's get our feet wet. Let's get our boots on the ground. Let's talk to the community about what's appropriate. When we started this process, when they started this process before my time, this has never been done in Florida before. This kind of thing has never been done in Florida. Sure, there are plenty of murals all over Florida. We have a Florida Murals Trail that the Visit Florida promotes. We have Lake Placid, which is the city of murals here in Florida, but that's not us. And this is just a conversation. The event permit is simply, it's not a festival. There may be some confusion because we'll be partnering with Art Walk, hopefully on an event on Art Walk Day, which happens to be the 19th. And that's what it is right now. We've had some delays and we will have to make some adjustments. But the beauty of a nonprofit that has a broad scope, which is right there on the wall that everybody can read, it's very broad. We can adjust, we can pivot. We can do what this community needs us to do, because that is our mission. Okay, so this is a conversation, and we are unfortunately having to ask the city permission to have a public conversation without 3-minute limits on public property. That is the extent of what this special use permit is about. The mural is an entirely separate item. And that is where, if the conversation you want to talk about need for scaffolding, then we can talk about that during that issue. Thank you. And if I have any more questions, please, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Mayor, we do have 3 hands now on Zoom if you wanted to switch to those folks.
Yes, please do. Thank
All
you.
right. The first on Zoom is going to be a Tony R. Mr. Tony, you're on with the commission. You have 3 minutes and your time starts now.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. My name's Tony Ricardo. I'm from Jacksonville, and I'm friends with Doug Hancock, sign artist, and also part of the artists that would be coming possibly to your event. I think there's some confusion about the timeline of events here. Understand, first of all, that the permit for 2022 is just for the opportunity for people to get information, and that there is a second item that is a possible mural should be voted on after this item, so that there's no confusion. You should make that clear, and that mural would not be painted if it's not passed. The scaffolding and priming, I guess Doug can address, but it takes quite a bit of time and effort in order for people to get an idea of what all's involved. And part of the process is for us to bring things like this out so that the public can see what all is involved in doing the project. The 2023 event is not that far away as far as artists are concerned. And people have a concept that maybe the Walldogs are some sort of a company or tight organization. We are not. Most of us own our own one-person business. We're commercial artists and sign artists and have a deep appreciation for the historical aspect of signs and painting in communities like yours. And all we want to do is help the city realize their dreams. Most Walldogs don't take anything out of the city. We pay our own way to get there, and we volunteer all of our time and effort. So I hope that that's taken into consideration in some of the discussion here.
All right, Mr. Mayor, the next just goes by JS on Zoom. JS, please state your name and you're on with the commission. You have 3 minutes and your time starts now.
I was just gonna clarify.
Do you hear me? Oops.
Yep, just one moment. The attorney wanted to clarify something, sir. Your time hasn't started.
Thank you.
So it sounds like there's been a little bit of confusion intermingling items 1 and 2. If item 1, if there's a special event permit approved for an event from March 12th through March 19th, and the item number 2, the mural, is not approved, what that means is the special event would move forward, but anything related to the mural and painting the mural, cross that out of there. That wouldn't be part of the event because it's not approved by the city. If item 1 is approved, so there's a special event permit approved and item 2 is approved, then you can assume that whole agenda is approved. But otherwise, if 1 is approved, 2 is not, pretend the mural is not there in that case. So I hope that clarifies that. That's why it's in there, is if both items are approved, but approving a special event permit does not approve the mural. I think that might clear up a little bit of the confusion.
Okay.
All right, sir, on Zoom, you have your 3 minutes now. You can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is John Sturpey. Do you hear me? Do you
Mr.
hear
Sturpey,
me?
you already spoke, so we are going to remove you from Zoom.
Yeah, but Sharon Yeagle's.
All right, Mr. Mayor. Alice is on.
Sharon is the applicant. And so when there is an applicant that it's the agenda item is because of their application and they were allowed to respond to questions.
Mr. Mayor, we have Alice on. Alice, if you'll please state your name with the commission. You have 3 minutes and your time starts now.
I'm Alice Brown and I also spoke earlier, so you can go ahead and shut me down.
All right, Mr. Mayor, that's it for Zoom.
Thank you. I seen another hand raised back there earlier. Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Nancy Piety, and I just have a couple of questions. This is the first meeting I've ever attended. I'm looking over the permit. I know that we need to speak specifically to the permit. I'm looking over the permit. The permit says that there's an expectation of 800 attendees. 800 attendees to do a workshop like this? Is that?
To clarify, that's over the period of the whole week. So not 800 in one place at one time. So take all those days and disperse the 800 people and add the art walk that we have all the time. The majority of that comes from the art walk, which is held, on a frequent basis.
Okay, so 800 attendees spread out over the number of days. The other thing that I don't see in the special permit application is exactly what these workshops are. I've heard repeatedly, we're going to workshop, we're going to workshop, we're going to discuss. What are we discussing? What are those workshops? When are they? What's the agenda?
I will let Sharon Yago speak to that since they're putting it on.
So originally, the workshops we had a schedule. We have had a month delay in getting approval to produce a schedule And so we have had some changes in the people that are going to be available to come to High Springs to talk with us about these issues. So if the special event permit is approved, then we will finalize a schedule that works with this conversation, works with what this community needs. The items that have been addressed tonight, the items that we've been hearing about for the last month, that is the primary purpose of that whole week. Okay.
Okay, so that would lead me to my next follow-up question on that, which would be, we have an application for a special event that we have no agenda for, and whose agenda will not be set until after you approve the application. That seems to take from a couple of other ladies who have spoken today, a little like the cart before the horse.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to help clarify?
Explain to him.
So as far as a special event permit goes, can everyone hear me okay? I just want to clarify, what we're talking about here is something that is outlined in our land development code, is whether or not a special event can be held at a public place. And when we make a decision like and I should clarify, when the commission or city staff makes a decision about that, they don't require an agenda of what all is going to happen at that special event. They need to know the details about the number of people, whether or not we may need security, whether we may need police. Are they going to have vendors? Are they going to have alcohol, food? So they know what kind of regulations to put on that event. But any decision for a special event permit by law has to be content neutral, meaning you can't put extra provisions on an event because one group's holding it versus another. And so the schedule that's proposed with the permit application is not a requirement. And so having a firm schedule is not something that the commissioner city staff looks at when they decide whether to approve or not approve. They're just looking at, do they have all the information we need to set any kind of parameters to protect the public? So that's really what the conversation is focused on, on the special event permit and on what's going to be held, on whether to hold a special event on March 12th through 19th. Would you like me to address that as well, Mr. Mayor? In the special event permit application, there's a section. Oh, the question was who's going to pay for the police if it's needed. In the special event permit application, there's a terms of agreement. In that, it says that if we require police, that there may be an extra charge. There could be a requirement for liability insurance, naming the city as an additional insured. There could be a deposit, a damage deposit, essentially. So there's parameters that we can put on an organization who wants to use public property, as long as it's tied to protecting the public and the welfare of the citizens. And we can have charges associated with that. So if there's a need for security or police, the organization could be required to pay for that.
No offense, but you already spoken, please. I seen a hand. I seen a hand in the back there somewhere. You asked me what I just said?
Yeah.
Could you please?
I need some clarification
Need some clarification on what?
on what she just said. The attorney was talking to the audience about the application. Understand? So we have had Karen get up and explain that
So what's your question, Sylvia? What's your question?
the question is, how does the public know what is going to be discussed during this 800 people event if they don't even know what it is? She said the questions have changed. How do we know? And when will we know so that we can have input to the heart of High Springs?
I don't believe that is a question for me. It sounds like a question of how do they know when the agenda or what agenda items will be in this workshop? And I think that's a question for Heart of High Springs, if I'm not mistaken.
If our special event permit is approved, we will move forward with a complete and final agenda.
Yes. Please come to. Oh, okay, okay.
Well, I do have a question specifically to her.
Come on, let's get out of hand. Once you speak one time, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to follow the rules, and I want to be fair to everyone. No more.
But if it's a
speak-
question directly to the
no
city
more-
attorney
no
about
more
the
speaking.
permit,
You can speak to her after, please, ma'am. Please, please, please. Let's have respect for everybody. Please, please. Well, Sylvia, it is what it is. That's the rules, and we're going to abide by the rules today. Okay? Thank you. Everybody. 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 Now, any more questions on the special permit? Any more comments for anyone that have not spoken? Yes, sir.
Mayor Williams. Oh, wow. That's not right here. Right here. Can everybody hear me from here? Does that sound good? My name is Dominic Del Buco. I am a homeowner in High Springs and a business owner. As far as I'm concerned, art on walls is not a new concept. I think they've been around since before Christ. So I don't, I don't really understand what the big deal is about that here. I've also been around the entire East Coast. In the past year, I've been to New York City, I've been to Wynwood, Miami, and I believe, you know, all of in everywhere in between. And I believe that the nicest places do have wall art. And also just to touch on another thing here, you know, we're not the best. And I think, you know, that's important to realize about yourself and about the town, and that there are experts in other areas and they might not be inside of High Springs. I've been here for a very long time, over a decade, and I don't believe I've ran into a wall art expert here in the town of High Springs. And also, you know, the rebuttal about not having a Facebook and being aggravated about not getting news is pretty much the same as saying, you know, not having Channel 4 and not knowing that, you know, Friends has a new episode. So that's a little bit awkward. And hearing about this, all of these rebuttals about just an easy piece of art on the side of a building that may be seen by a few people every day, you know, really makes me think about the future of this town. Like, how hard is it going to be to develop anything in the future here? If it's this hard to just have a wall art. And I think that's pretty much all of my notes that I have here. Thanks for having me.
Anyone else want to speak on this?
Hi, my name is Monica White. I just have questions. So in the permit, it doesn't list the specific locations that this will be held, correct? Because what I'm seeing in the permit, written in the permit is see attachment, right? So is the attachment this agenda that hasn't been finalized yet?
So they, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Sharon, that part of this week-long event is to talk about, you know, the city's, the history in the city and possible murals that could be painted if, you know, things choose to go that way. Looking at people, places, the number of things that contributed to our history, as well as locations. So that they are a variety of research that has been done and options that will be put out there for people to consider, along with what or if there's going to be a 2023 event based on the feedback from this week.
I get all of that. I do. I truly understand the meaning of approving a permit and not necessarily the agenda. What I'm asking though is you're telling me in the permit to see an attachment. And that also doesn't give me that information. So I'm just curious, where are the locations?
Oh, I think that meant the multiple sites where the events were going to be held that week, not where the murals were going to be done. And so now, since the agenda has to be reformatted that those locations could change and they're still deciding where they're going to be.
Okay.
Based on this meeting. Sorry for misunderstanding.
No, that's okay. I don't understand everything we talked about tonight, but if we're approving a permit and all of the information isn't in the permit, I guess that's where I'm a little confused.
So for everyone who doesn't have the permit in front of them, I believe the question is in the event information, it says event location, and it lists multiple sites, see attached. And then there's the attached agenda, which Ms. Diego has said may need to be revised at this point. So the question is, how do we know where in the city?
You're telling me to reference an attachment in the permit, but the attachment you're telling me to reference is not finalized. And you're trying to approve a permit for attachments that haven't been finalized yet. And that's where I get confused as well.
Well, I think that the locations where they want to do things aren't going to change. They're not going to pick the locations that are on here will be the same locations where they will hold things. I think the agenda is more the content now because the discussions have changed.
And I do appreciate that, but as I'm hearing your statements is I think this and I think that. So I'd like an answer because if we're not supposed to look at the agenda to base our comments and concerns off of, and it's not in the permit, so.
Mr. Mayor, I believe I can address that by advising the commission that this is something that the commission can absolutely discuss and say that they want to know the exact locations prior to approving the permit, and that can be a condition of the approval.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question relative to the city attorney's comment? Could the commission also make a request of the folks from the Heart of High Springs to have their public discussions at times that might be outside normal work hours when people could attend? Because if their meetings were at 10 a.m., well, for me, that'd be a problem. So that may be something that we could consider if that's appropriate.
I think that would be something that is more direction to the Heart of High Springs than a requirement of the permit itself, because the permit itself is whether or not to use the city property.
One of the things that we did do was create our preferred and our alternative sites. Knowing that we have been in the middle of a pandemic for 2 years, we weren't really sure when we first put this together over a month ago what the situation would be. And so we have actually identified outside locations as well as inside locations, both public and private spaces for potential sites for these because of the situation.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, we have a new hand on Zoom if there's no one else in the Civic Center right now. Marcia McCloyd, you have 3 minutes with the commission and your time starts now. Ms. Marcia, you've been brought on with the commission. You need to unmute yourself. Mr. Mayor, we'll have to circle back to that individual.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience like to speak on this issue? All right, commissioners.
Can you hear me? Okay. I've listened to all the comments that have been said tonight. I think everyone knows where I stand on this. I have received a lot of emails, phone calls, and texts regarding this. And there are many people who can't attend and many people who don't have computers or use Facebook. And I know that was a source of, well, anyway, not everybody has it. And you have to understand that not everybody is young and vibrant, even we older people have our Facebooks and all, but we don't criticize someone who doesn't go into Facebook. They need to be more aware of it. I'm still hearing people don't even know what a wall dog is, what's going on. So we need more information, a way to get it out to people instead of saying, it's up to you to determine what's going on with the city. Basically, until this came up on the agenda, nobody knew about Walldogs as far as the city was concerned. So this is still very new, and a comment that was made that they're a month behind. Perhaps if they had started earlier, we could have solved this earlier and they wouldn't be a month behind. It's my contention still that it was, they didn't want it known. They didn't want it known. They've kept it underneath the covers and surprised you with things. And this is what I was concerned about during my meeting several years ago. You know, wait until they're getting the walls, or they're fixing to have the walls put up, but they're $20,000, $30,000 behind. They really need some help here, and the city doesn't have $20,000 or $30,000 to chip in. I've seen it before, so that wouldn't surprise me. I constantly hear, why does a small amount of people make decisions for the whole town? They do not understand this. This is unacceptable to them. How they store their history may be a subject of conversation, but it needs to be something that is discussed, not thrown out, this is what we're going to do. And because there were comments said, it's a done deal. You know, people thought that this was going to be done, period. And it is going to be done, because they've said if they don't get approval from the city commission, they will do it on private land. It will change their schedule substantially, but they will do it. So it's my contention that these people are going to go full bore ahead, and they're not going to take into account what all of these people, I mean, why would you want to move forward when you've got so many people who are against it? I do not understand that. It just amazes me. You need to start all over, in my opinion. Set up meetings, tell people what you think they need, not what they must have. Thank you.
I like an orderly meeting. I think that's very, very disrespectful, inappropriate. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is a meeting. Yes, this is a meeting. Let's respect one another. Can we please do that? Let's respect one another, please. Sylvia, please respect me. Am I talking? Please, Matt, Sylvia, please respect. Please respect. That's all I'm asking for. And everybody deserves that. I deserve that. You deserve that. And every person that speaks, please, please. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we have the McLeods back on Zoom if you'd like to try them.
Yes.
Okay. All right. This account is from Van. You're on with the commission. You have 3 minutes and your time starts now.
Hi there. My name is Van McLeod. And, many of the elderly residents of High Springs may know me or my family. It was my mom trying to speak earlier. I just wanted to raise 2 points that aren't relevant to the special permit, but I believe the city council and the mayor should provide the information to the building owners of the city of High Springs prior to any decision. There are a great number of monies available in historic grants, and I would encourage everyone to look at Main Street, Florida Main Street, for an example of them. These grants, by and large, are nullified once the buildings are defaced. And deface is a legal term. It doesn't mean that the murals are going to be unattractive or something of that nature. It means that the original facade needs to be kept in place. These grants range from several thousand to several $100,000. In order to determine what is best for the city, the opportunity cost of losing these grants should be considered. That's the first point. Second point is the Walldogs are not new to the area. People should understand what happened when they attempted to paint murals in Ocala and I believe Alachua, but certainly Ocala. And also an additional model for the city to consider is how Micanopy has addressed its historic district. And Micanopy does not suffer from a lack of tourism because it has kept its historic district in its original facade. And that's it. I mean, I can understand Kelly's wanting the mural. Dean Davis had that building painted in the 1970s or perhaps late 60s. So that building has already been had a mural on it. But for many of these buildings, I think the owners would be surprised to know the amount of money that they're forgoing by allowing something to be painted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, there are no further hands on Zoom at this time.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Come to the mic, please.
Hi, first I want to thank you all for your patience. My name is Tina Corbett. I'd like to address some of the things that were just brought up, and that I'd like to say that I'm in support of the permit to start to have those couple of meetings or agenda or get-togethers with the town to discuss all these things, whether maybe murals on the wall may not be the right thing for High Springs, and they may be, as Diane said, from the museum, be put on boards. But unless we have those discussions, unless people get together and decide, well, I want this, but I don't want that. You know, there was a plan for Walldogs, but since all this dissension, a lot of thought is getting into, well, maybe we have to go in different directions, or maybe we have to alter or compromise. So unless people get together in a permit situation where we have people getting together to discuss different options, how will we know that? And to get a permit to have people together in a public place, where else can we have this unless we have it in a public place and meet together as a town? There's all different people here from all different walks of life, everybody loves it here. I have a business here. I really enjoy here. We escape the craziness of South Florida, like probably 90% of the people here. But if we don't get together and talk about it, then how are we going to solve the problem of facades? And if we have what's the history requirements of these buildings, and nothing will ever be done if an owner doesn't want it. Nothing will ever be done. There is no monies that are being raised from anyone but donations. That's all misinformation on where the money is going to come from. I don't get paid. I don't gain whether we have it or not. My business doesn't matter. If we have murals, we don't have murals. I've been there 7 years. I'll be there till I retire and I give it up. Whether we have murals or not makes no difference to me, but I thought it was a good idea. I got involved because I wanted some connection to the creative process, so we don't have weird, kind of strange subjects. That was my whole purpose of getting involved in this. Whether it goes on or not, it will be up to the town. It will be up to the people who put it together. and work together with other people, because something like this cannot be put on unless you have cooperation between all. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, we do have a Kelly on Zoom that we can bring in. Kelly, you're on with the commission. Please state your full name and your 3 minutes starts now.
My name is Kelly Chatham. I am a 30-year sign professional. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. First time I've ever done a Zoom. I just want to say that I think it's really sad that so many people have the wrong idea about this event. This event is to, as I understand, and I am, like I said, I am a 30-year sign professional. I own my own business, and I am out of Jacksonville. I am also a Walldog. I attended an event in Keene, New Hampshire in 2019. We are not an organized group. There is no group. It is simply individuals who choose to come at their own expense to bring about beautiful work. These are and I'm not speaking myself, these are artists that are so well known all in our industry. They're the best of the best. This is an opportunity like no other. I want to just say that a very good informational piece was done on the Keene event on PBS, and it's easy to find. Let me see. I was gonna give you the information. It's on YouTube. You can look up the documentary on Keene Walldogs event. And it's about bringing the community together. No one wants to do anything that the community is not on board. This is something that brings people together. It is not to bring dissent. It is not to deface. It is really a wonderful thing that if you just get a little more information about, I think, and that's what this event permit is, just to explain. People have just got the wrong idea. Nobody's coming to do anything except talk to you about your history and what we can do to memorialize it and to bring it to the public or anyone who happens to be traveling by, and bring interest, so much interest that they'll want to go to your museum and they're going to want to spend time in your town. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and thank you for listening.
Yeah. Anyone else on the audience? Yes, sir.
My name is Richard Bridges. I would like to recommend to the commission that you table this motion until you find out about historical ideas that are required, what you can do and what you cannot do, and to find out and then make a decision if High Springs wants to stay a historical site or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir, in the back.
Good evening. Name is Eric Party. Seems a lot of contention on this issue. Ms. Jones even mentioned it, that maybe they need more time. So I wanted to ask, what's the permit process? I'm new to High Springs, so I'm not sure what the process is. If they were to be denied, could they not refile for a permit at a later date?
So if I could answer that, the usual process is that the permits come to the city. We have a number of departments evaluate the permits for mainly life, health, safety reasons. So we'd have, for instance, if there's bounce houses or tents, fire department's going to make sure to go out and inspect that they're fireproof. We're going to see how many officers we need, if any roads need to be shut down, crowd control, that sort of things. Once all of that has been evaluated, then it comes to me, the city manager, to sign off on it. This event was a little different because it was something that has some political ideology behind. I don't know what the word is. Obviously, two sides to it. So I actually decided to put it on the agenda so there could be discussion regarding it. However, we are supposed to make decisions on the event. As the city attorney stated, they need to be content neutral. So when the commission makes the decision to vote, it really is supposed to be a life, health, safety, the same thing I would sign on. The reason why, again, this was put on was for discussion purposes so the people doing the event could get additional input from the community, that sort of thing, and the commission can make the ultimate decision.
So my original question is, are they able to reapply?
Yes, they can always reapply.
So my recommendation to the commission, if you'll have it, is let's pass on this one. Give them the time to get some sort of agenda together, since this is something that seems to be rather contentious with the community. Maybe that would be a better idea, and go from there. Let's put it back on the agenda at a later time once we have more information. Thank you. Eric Piety. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
I need to clarify something that our city manager just said. That the commission can only vote on as to whether there's a health issue, or are we told what we can do about approving this?
I think I'll let the city attorney address that more. There was the city attorney sent an email out. I'm sure you remember reading it. I don't know if it just came out this last weekend regarding not being able to make decisions based on the content of the event.
No, I don't remember that.
That's correct. So with any kind of special event permit to use public city property, the decision has to be content neutral, meaning that any decision made on whether to approve or deny a permit needs to be based on what's in the permit, not the group who's applying for the permit. So regulations for a special event on city property may be tied to protecting the citizens and the health and welfare of the general public. So you're looking at, do we need to have security? And actually, if you look on the terms of agreement for the application, it kind of goes into some detail about it. Do we need to have uniform law enforcement? Do we need to have a user fee for each facility? Do we need to have a supervisor for parking, a damage deposit? Just what do we need to do to control, to protect the public from the size of the event, or if it's maybe going to be an event that has some unrest, do we need to have extra security, things like that. But any kind of decision is ultimately going to be based on a content neutral decision and what you need to protect the citizens, not who is applying for the application.
Or what they're doing?
I would need a further clarification to answer
They went into details what they're doing on the permit. If we disagree with what they're doing, does that mean you're saying it has to be content neutral? We don't have an opinion in that?
So as for approving the special event permit, that is correct. Now, when we talk about the murals, that's totally different. When we talk about a special event permit that has something like a policy roundtable on art in public places, that is just that is not them adding something to city property. That is using city property to have a discussion. So that would be content neutral on whether or not a permit would be granted. Now, when we get to item number 2, and I'll use now to clarify it, that's totally different. That is not a content neutral decision. That is whether or not you are allowing somebody to paint a mural on city property. That is up to the commission. That is not based on, that's not a neutral policy. But when you're asking, can a group hold some kind of discussion on city property, the same content neutral application needs to be applied to any group who might come in, whether it's a group of teachers, a group of artists, a religious group. Any group would have to have the same application of our.
I don't think I'm expressing myself correctly. Can this commission deny this permit because residents are concerned about what they're trying to do with the walls in this town?
I would advise against that. And the reason is this is not, in this application, they're not requesting to paint or in any way alter city property. And so the city attorney's office, our advice is the application as it stands today in front of us is about whether to host an event on city property, not whether to alter city property. And so we have to apply a uniform standard for any group who wants to use city property.
So basically, the residents out here are wasting their time because it's the fact that they don't approve of what it's leading to doesn't matter.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to address that as well?
Yes, please. Thank you.
There are 2 agenda items, and I just want to make
I
sure.
know. The
Right,
second
and
one is Mr. Dieterman. I understand
And so I
that.
just want to make sure I address them at the right time, and that's why I was double checking. But as far as agenda item 2, a lot of the commentary is very valid for y'all's decision.
But I understand that. It's the permit that I'm concerned about now, the special permit. And I feel like I'm hearing that it really doesn't matter what we think, that it's going to have to be approved anyway.
When it comes to agenda item number 1, the decision has to be made. The city attorney's office recommendation would be it has to be made from a content neutral standpoint, meaning each individual commissioner's
Hold
opinion
on, she
on the
can't, they
group.
can't hear you.
Can you repeat that? Oh, sure. When it comes to agenda item number 1, the individual city commissioner's opinion on the group or the events being held by the group is not going to be a relevant factor, because under constitutional law, there has to be a content neutral application for any group asking to use city property for an event. So again, whether it is a group of teachers, a group of artists, a group of a political or religious organization, if they have properly filled out this application, have provided all the information they need, all regulations would be for the health, safety, and welfare of the public, not based on the individual opinions of the commission.
So in my opinion, based on what you've said, we really don't need to be here. You're allowing the residents to express their opinions, but it is a done deal. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to question you,
Please, no
give you a
speaking,
hard time or
please.
anything. I'm just realizing what you're saying. I did not take that from the information that you sent out over the weekend. I'm going to have to go back and reread that because I did not understand that. And this puts it in a different light, totally. Whatever this meeting is about, it puts it in a different light. And we're only allowed to talk about the permit. I've said enough.
They don't understand what's going on here. So I'm going to try and clarify in layman's terms, is the event itself is like if someone was coming here. The problem is everybody's connecting this with Walldogs. I understand that, and no matter what's going on with that, but the event itself is no different than a bunch of people coming in and saying, hey, we want to have an event to discuss the future of High Springs. And in that discussion, or when they're here, they'll say they discuss high rises or something. That's a separate item. They have to approve this event if they meet all the requirements, meet all the legal requirements, and there's no danger or chance of damage to anyone else. That's a totally separate item. Now, as far as what they're talking about is murals and stuff like that, that's a separate item and comes up separately. Now, if they decide they want to paint a mural, that still has other steps it has to go through. They have to go through the planning board, get it approved there, then it's got to go to council, and then you go through this all again just for the mural. But as far as the event goes, it's no different than any group coming in and just saying, we want to have an event, whether we want to put high rise in, or if we want to do some sort of water management thing or whatever. It's the event is what you're having to prove. And if they meet all the minimum requirements by constitutional law, they are allowed to have that. I mean, everybody's equating it together. I understand, because they put it together, and that's why they're stuck with that. But the event itself technically has to be approved because they meet all the requirements. After that, what they want to do to the event or what they want to change has to go through other channels as well. I hope that clears some of it up.
Mayor, may I add something just
Yes.
for clarification? There has been discussion on a larger event down the road. I would just like to clarify if there was an event permit application that came in on a larger event that would require police, fire, city funds, shutting down roads, anything like that, then that would be something that, you know, we wouldn't have to just approve, that it would come to the commission because it would take city resources. So I just wanted to clarify that. So it's not that if there is an impact on city resources, then there would be an approval and a yes or no. And your recommendation would be based on the commission decision, correct?
Right. For this specific example, I need to pull up the LDR on roads to see
Okay.
what we have to apply, but that's correct. If we are shutting down a road or something, sorry, y'all, I know I talk quiet, I'm sorry. If you are shutting down roads or things like that, we have what's called the land development regulations, and there are additional criteria outlined there. So that's not where we are right now, but absolutely, if we were looking at an event of such large scale was impacting roads, we would have additional items to consider and apply.
Anyone else want to speak on this? Ma'am, you already spoken. Commissioner Ambrose.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor. You know, I've attended a lot of meetings in the past 20 years here for the city of High Springs. And where I've seen things get really difficult for the community is when a lot of emotion factors into the decision. So we want to look at what is our policy and what is our process. And the attorney is definitely putting that in front of us, and it can be frustrating at times. But if we look at other groups, you know, the High Springs Brewery decides to allow the Women's Club to host a fundraiser on their property on a weekend. That's a special event, and it requires a permit that the city staff approve. So it requires a special event permit because it's outside of their normal permit as a business to do. So that's a special event permit. Pioneer Days is a special event permit. And when those permits come forward for something as large as Pioneer Days, they do not have all the details down. They do not have a complete list of vendors and where they're going to go. But based on assurances and about layout and fire lanes and staffing requirements, they make arrangements to comply with their permit, and the city staff go back and forth and ask information. And yes, I'm a part of the Heart of High Springs. And really, as I understand it, we're just finally post-COVID, and not everything has been the best process, but we're just trying to engage the community in public spaces. And the original permit that see attached, I mean, it lists a variety of things. I mean, originally it was Sunday from the 13th through the Friday the 18th, a display at the High Springs Library of potential historic topics for people to learn about, to add to comment on. And there were other things scheduled, and we're going to have to readjust. We really just want an opportunity without a commitment to 10 murals or even one mural to engage the community in a discussion that allows us to tell our stories and possibly preserve them through art. We're a growing community. And it's not even so much the tourists, but a lot of the people moving here don't know a rich history. They don't know a lot of the stories. So maybe some of these murals are going to be an impetus to keep some of those memories special that really make this town quaint and small as we continue to grow. You know, I've lived here 20 years, and most of the people involved in the group, I mean, Kelly's been here since his great-great-grandfather came in town on a wagon. All the discord is one of the things. When I started getting involved, I asked a couple of questions about other communities that have done this. And the first question was, would you do it again? Would you do anything differently? And there were no consistent answers. The second question was, looking back, what were your takeaways as a community? And the number one thing that almost all of them said is it brought people in the community together. People who normally wouldn't talk to each other, people who had different interests. And as they go around the town now, they all had a part in creating some piece of art, and they have a memory of that process and that story. So I'm just asking, you know, let's have a little faith in each other that we all want to do something good for the community, and that, you know, if the permit is allowed for us to publicize meetings in public places, we make the same time and effort, like we've come here tonight and engaged in public media and otherwise, to come listen and talk and learn about a lot of the details, because I think you might be surprised at all the information that has been gathered when it's been really hard to get people to do things, because all of our lives have been really disrupted the last year and a half. Thank you.
On the addendum here that's part of the special use permit, and this is just something that I think would be really good to clarify that I didn't get an answer to earlier. It says on Friday, March 18th, 2022 from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., meet the Walldogs social. It's important for me to understand that there's been no commitment made to the Walldogs. So that's accurate and true. And I think that's important for folks here to understand. So that perhaps this addendum here might change to just more open discussions on different things that the Heart of High Springs could do that didn't have anything to do with the Walldogs. Just different ideas that the community could share as a way to share your love of art and history, perhaps just in a different way. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I was looking at that same addendum as part of the application for the permit. And I was surprised, Sharon, that you didn't mention it when so many of the citizens mentioned that they saw no indication of what your agenda was. The document is on letterhead from the Heart of High Springs. And of course, it does not say agenda, but it explains what you guys had intentions of doing on each and every day in that week. And I was really surprised that it didn't come up in any of the discussion that's going on. Now, I realize because at this point, some of the dates are passed and it will have to be restructured somewhat, but it is there. And I just thought I'd mention that.
Any more discussion on this item? So this is a workshop. There's no voting on tonight. This is a workshop. This is a workshop. So the next item.
I think I do need direction on, staff needs direction on whether to bring this forward at another meeting for action or not, or whether I'm supposed to, what y'all want me to do, staff to do next for this, put it back on the next commission meeting, on a special meeting on Thursday for action. We kind of do need a little direction.
I mean, based on what the city attorney said, there really isn't any opportunity other than to approve the permit to uphold their First Amendment right for peaceful assembly.
What Ashley's asking is, procedurally, there's two ways that the special event permit can be approved, right? One would be just through city staff and Ashley ultimately approving it, and that could be by direction of the commission to say, city manager is okay to approve that. It's not a vote, it's just direction. Alternatively, given the nature of the issue, it could be brought back as either a special meeting item or an agenda item at the next meeting for the commission to act on to approve. But because this is not something that's required to be approved by the commission, y'all can also give direction for the city manager to move forward with the application. I think that's what direction Ashley's talking about.
Yes.
Since there's really nothing for us to vote on, I believe that we should just turn it over to Ashley and let her take care of it, because all the time that we've expended, all the energy, hours that we've expended on this, and there was no reason for it. I just really am disappointed. It's not just me, it's a lot of people. And you just sit there and smile. I know. Thank you.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, Ashley, I guess this in your hands, since this is what we can do. Do we need to take a 5-minute recess and then come back to the next thing? Let's take a 5-minute recess, please.
Folks, if you could take your seats, please, we're going to resume the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Thank you.
So at this time, I call this workshop back to order. All right, the next agenda is discuss and consider act on placing a mural, Mr. Tom Diedemann on the wall of the old school. So at this time, we'll zoom in. Ms. Sharon?
Okay. Oh, definitely. Sorry, buddy. This is really very, very brief, very short. This is the end. We're on the home stretch. As you know, we have been doing our research on historic figures, and one of the ones that came up with was, of course, Mr. Diedemann. Believe it or not, we've actually been getting some backlash from him as well, about him, about his history, and it's hard to believe that somebody so revered in our community. So what we've proposed, a 13 by 13 foot mural on the old school that he was the teacher of and the principal of, and that he helped to desegregate. And the only thing that we can really say to you right now is that it's going to be a community event. We've had two such community events like this previously that were related to murals. One, of course, was the girl in the goggles. I don't know if anybody knows about the history of that, but that happens to be Testa Skiles, Wes Skiles' daughter. Wes put High Springs on the map as an underwater explorer from around the world. He's best known for his work with National Geographic. The other one was a little bit more low key. You see our librarian Joanne in there painting away. This was this is a mural that unfortunately was painted over, as murals are wont to do on occasion. And this was in the old Adventure Outpost building, which I think is now a barber shop, or was a quilt shop. I think maybe a barber shop. But anyway, so whatever it is that we do, it's going to be involving the community. We're not going to do anything on our own. We don't sit in an ivory tower, and all of our activities are going to be related to community engagement. Girl Scouts actually helped with that one. Thank you so much for your time and your effort and your energy. We unfortunately, because of these delays, do not have a time frame for this mural now. We have had to, obviously, as we've been talking about on the other agenda items, we've had to make some adjustments. And so we cannot produce this mural in March. And if you would like us to take it off the agenda, we will do that and come back to you when we do have a time frame. It's up to you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so I'm hearing that you're withdrawing this from the agenda.
So moved.
We don't vote. With that being said,
Thank you.
with a motion to adjourn, please. All right, meeting adjourned.